All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Gorowski, and I'll be your host for today. If you've been tuning in already this month, you know this is one of our favorite months. We've been doing this for years. Every February, we kick all the men out and we host women in science, exploration, adventure, and conservation for the whole month. We've been talking to scientists and photographers and filmmakers and engineers. It's been a really fun month, and we've barely started. We have lots more events coming up over the course of February. We also have a massive festival tomorrow, Women Blaze Trails. It's the 12th, 13th, 14th for the general public. 50 plus scientists, explorers, adventurers, and conservationists. These women are going to share their stories, their challenges, expeditions, research, projects that they're really excited about. So I'm really excited for today's event. Every month we get to take a little trip to Svalbard. We get to spend a little time with the Hearts in the Ice team, Sunniva Sorby and Hilda Strom. In 2019 and 2020, they made history when they became the first women to overwinter in Svalbard solo. They spent 12 months at the remote trapper's cabin called Bumsabu, located at 78 degrees north and 140 kilometers from the closest town of Longyearbyen in Svalbard. Climate change isn't taking a break, so they return to Svalbard in November and will be overwintering at Bumsabu until May 2021. Together, they have a team of 10 global partners. Hearts in the Ice is that bridge between science and global citizens to better understand climate change and why we all need to play a role. So they are continuing to serve as citizen scientists on a variety of projects, from observing clouds and the auroras to flying drones to monitor the ice, collecting phytoplankton samples as they build on their second year of data collection. So joining me live via satellite phone from Bumsabu, I have Hilda and Sunniva joining us today. How are we doing today, ladies?
Hey there. We're doing good, thanks.
All right.
Joe.
Hi. Well, it is so great to hear your voices. It's a lot of fun to get to host you a few times each month with classrooms. We're excited for an update.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Hilda, and Sunniva will share something about our partnerships after. Today.
All right. Now, they're pretty remote. We have to connect to them via satellite, via the phone. So from time to time, we will lose them, and they do have to call back when that satellite connection breaks. So that gives me a chance to share my screen while we're waiting for them to come back. And they have some great images to go along with what they're going to be sharing with us today. In fact, my phone's going again already. There we go.
Okay, so everyone, we are so close to the North Pole, and this is our satellite. It's sometimes very hard to connect, but we'll try again. So today it's -16, and we have had some daylight today. Actually, last Friday we were out kayaking, and that means that this winter has been so much more milder than last winter. This is sort of an effect of the climate change up here in the Arctic. And we were out there taking a CPD, and that was the temperature in the seawater. The temperature in both in air and sea is rising, and that is a problem towards all the animals in the sea and also on shore. Last winter we had sea ice, and we could take ice core samples at this time in February last year. And now we can actually do a kayak trip, which is quite extreme, I would say. So the wildlife is struggling, and I know, Joe, that you have some pictures of polar bears that we have taken. There are several problems for the wildlife. The polar bears need sea ice in order to hunt their main food source, which is seals. And also the reindeers are struggling because due to rain this winter, we have a layer of ice on land. So they are struggling getting down to their food source underneath a layer of ice. And also the polar bears, they are struggling in another way too, because the mother polar bear, they go into a den in late November, beginning of December, and they dig a big sort of a little house in the snow. And this winter, the layer of snow has been so thin, So the insulation in the den has been less than last year. So they can actually measure by a collar around the polar bear mom's neck that actually calls in every night to the scientists and tell temperature and her movements and all that. And the collar can actually tell the scientists that the polar bear moms has been colder this winter, because even if it's milder outside, the insulation is less in their den. So we're very excited to see if polar bears are coming out of their den with the live polar bear cubs this winter. So so we're having a very exciting time in front of us, and soon I will share some more about what we are doing. Hey there, Joe. Can you still hear us?
We gotcha. Yep.
Yep. It's a good thing one of our calls is all about satellites at the end of the month. I was just thinking of that. Why we drop off. Today, it is really exciting for us to have this call with Abir from BRP today, because it's a very, very special day in the world of women and girls in science, it being a United Nations recognized day. And it's especially powerful for us because neither Hilda nor myself are actual scientists. But we are trying to create a lot of buzz around the word citizen science, which is what we're doing up here. And just a quick call out to an organization that we're both involved in, obviously the Explorers Club, but also an organization that's really working towards equity and making sure that women are cited and funded in science, and that is Wings World Quest. You can tee up that video, Joe. We have some pretty cool drone video. We use our snowmobile, our Lynx snowmobile, for so many things here. And just yesterday, Hilda and I were saying that there's not enough ice in the fjord for snowmobiles to come to us, and there's enough ice in the fjord where no ships can come in. So our only lifeline here right now is a snowmobile. It's the only way we can get out and explore. We use it for so many different things as it relates to citizen science, from wildlife observation. We also drive out when there is ice to collect ice core samples. That's our only safe way to get out there and do that. We also use the snowmobile to train Etra, and I'll tell you about her in just a quick second, our Malamute. We also are able to use it to get out to the other side of where we are to pick up logs that float in from Siberia, a lot of driftwood, and we haul that behind our snowmobile and drag it back to Bumsaboo, and we chop that up, and that's our firewood. That's our heating source here. So, and it's also just an extreme source of freedom and discovery and exploration for us. Very powerful, and it truly is our single lifeline. BRP was one of our first partners with this project, and it's a very important and powerful thing for us that we're aligned with a company like BRP, because they understand that it's not just about a machine. It's about aligning with your passion and your values. So I think it's so special that we get to host Abir, who is from what I read and understand, is a wizard at problem solving, and that's one thing that we have become experts at, is solving problems, having been here for 14 months. So we're super excited to hear from you, Abir. And last thing I want to share is, under 2 weeks ago, Etra came to us. She was in Longyearbyen recovering from surgery. And you should have seen the operation to get her here. We had slush ice. We walked out into the water with our survival suits on, our safety gear, and we had our snowmobile parked as close as we could to the water line and had a rope attached to it, and that was our anchor. So we have lots of really creative uses for a snowmobile here. So I hope, we're looking forward to the call, and I will hand it back to you, Joe, and Abir. And thank you so much, Abir, for joining us today.
All right. Awesome. Well, we are doing, as you were speaking, I was going through a few pictures of you with the snowmobiles, you and Hilda. We saw Etra in one of the pictures. I'm so happy that you have Etra back. It must be just so comforting.
Oh, we are so happy, and you should see her. She's running around with her tail high, and she's just free, and her smell, I mean, she's smelling everything around here. She's so extremely happy, and so are we. And just now, she's actually up on the sofa. So she is a polar dog, and she loves to be outside, but she also loves the company inside a hut with us.
All right. Very, very cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I mean, the scenery that you're in, the photos, the auroras, it is great that you have, a legacy sponsor like BRP, and you're able to use this incredible gear to help you get around and do some of your citizen science projects. So
we can add one more thing, Joe, and that is the polar bears that we have visiting our hut. In order, if you have a polar bear that's really hard to scare away with a flare gun, because we had one close up 2 weeks ago up on our front door. If they are really difficult for us to scare away, it's the last chance we have is to start our engine on the snowmobile and try to chase it away. That's also a way to use the snowmobile in case of a very difficult polar bear.
All right. I never thought of that before. That's an interesting use for the snowmobile. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to bring... It
should be a new tagline for their marketing.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'm going to bring in our guest who's joining us today. I'm so excited that we have Abir Fakhreddine joining us today. She's a mechanical engineer. She's Lebanese in origin, born and raised in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. She moved to Montreal in 2014, where she completed a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering at Concordia University. During her studies, she was in academics and robotics competitions, and that led to her recruitment by BRP to her current position. So she is a diagnostic and validation engineer. So she gets to combine her passion for technical problem solving and her love for meeting people in the job that she gets to do. So I'm going to bring Abir in live with us. Hi, Abir. How are you?
Hi, Joe. I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, good. Well, we're thrilled to have you joining us live today. I saw you laughing a little bit backstage at the polar bear scare with the
amazing.
Pretty cool.
So excited, yeah. We need to add a few of those applications.
I think so. In the owner's manual, in the brochure.
For sure.
Very cool. Well, I will let you take over for a little bit and share your screen, and then we're going to have a big Q&A party with our students.
Awesome. So, first of all, I'd like to say to Hilda and Sinova, wow, I'm so impressed and honored to be in your presence. You women are absolutely courageous and extremely brave. So, congrats on such an amazing accomplishment. And I'm really glad to see that some of our BRP products are actually coming to good use like that. And that's a very creative way of using them. So, I'll definitely be bringing that to the marketing team. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about my journey and myself. So my name is Abir Fakhreddine, and I'm a specialist in diagnostics and validation in the mechatronics team at BRP. I'm working in Valcourt, which is the birthplace of Joseph Armand Bombardier, who is the founder of BRP. And actually, the company was first founded by the invention of the snowmobile. So there's a little bit of a history lesson there. And don't be intimidated by the title. It's really simple. I'll be just talking about my journey a little bit, how I got to where I am, and how you can get there as well. And a little bit about what mechatronics is and how it can contribute to the community. So a little bit about my journey. Like Joe said, I was born in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, and I moved to, so I was born and raised there. And then at the age of around 17, 18, I moved to Lebanon to be with my mom and my grandma. And I lived there for about 4 years, completed school, and then I decided to take on a new challenge. I decided to take on a new challenge. I knew I wanted to study something, hands-on that would help advance and develop society. And in specific, I really wanted to study something that challenged the status quo. I felt like mechanical engineering, anything within that range of engineering, was really at the time, especially coming from a Middle Eastern culture, really, I wouldn't say taboo, but not very heard of, not popular amongst females of my generation. And so that was a big reason of why I chose this major. So, I moved to Canada in 2014. And specifically, I chose Quebec to go to university because I was really intrigued by the culture in Quebec, knowing that, it's a francophone, it's a French-speaking province within North America. So that really intrigued me, and I saw it as an opportunity to try and add an extra language to my language bank. So I now speak 3 languages, English, French, and Arabic, all fluently. I work in English and French. And that's thanks to the big decision I made to move here. So, in 2014, I moved to Quebec. I started university at Concordia, where I studied mechanical engineering, and I chose concentration in robotics, systems, and mechatronics, which I'll be explaining a little bit about later. And finally, in 2018, upon my graduation, I was recruited by BRP to be a Diagnostics and Validation Engineer. And I just want to emphasize to all of you watching this that I got recruited by BRP at a competition. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because regardless of what age you are or what level of education you're at, it's extremely important to keep your mind stimulated and be involved academically, even sports, even in the arts and the culture. It's really important to be involved in any events happening around you in school or out of school, because you will be recognized for it. So that's a little bit about my journey. And I have to also say that, before choosing engineering, I was a little bit lost because I'm someone of many interests. And so after a while, towards my application to university, I felt like the engineering life chose me because it seemed like all my interests and hobbies were really related to hands-on work, taking things apart, putting things back together. I was really attracted to that kind of work. So a little bit about my education. I studied mechanical engineering, which is basically just the science of design and figuring out how things worked. Actually, figuring out how things worked was the #1 driver of why I picked mechanical engineering specifically. It is one of the oldest engineering, let's say, professions, because it really boils down to how do things work and how can we make them work better. And that brought me to mechatronics, because mechatronics is a perfect amalgamation or mix of all the relevant sectors that we have nowadays. So when it comes to, digital devices, electronics, you don't just have to stick to electrical engineering. If you want to apply electronics to daily life devices, like including cars, for example, like Tesla now works with electrical vehicles, but you need the basic concepts of mechanics to make sure that works in a secure manner for the user. So mechatronics is basically a mix of mechanical systems, so your typical gearbox set, your electronics, so your circuitry, and then the intelligent system that makes both of these things communicate with each other, which is basically software or computer systems. And that makes up mechatronics. Now, you may have heard of mechatronics in different ways, like robotics, for example. That's another kind of mechatronics. So mechatronics is really anything you want it to be. It's all around us. And I see it as, a specialization or a sector where creativity meets skill, because it's all about making something better and more efficient to do what you want it to do. And I would just ask all of you students to take a look around you in your classroom and tell me, or just, think about whether you can recognize anything you think is related to mechatronics around you. So, it's still pretty early for you to be applying to universities, but once you do, I really hope all of you enjoy your university experience as much as I did. I would say, yes, I did enjoy my classes, sure. Maybe I skipped a class or two. Don't tell my professors that. But I truly enjoyed my university experience because I was extremely involved in university, and I was lucky enough to go to a university that encouraged involvement. So as you can see in this picture, this is a picture where I was working on the electrical systems of a remote controlled aircraft. And that remote controlled aircraft was about 5 feet long. So that's almost as tall as I am, because I'm not that tall. It was a 50-pound aircraft, 5 feet tall, and it needed to have specific electronic components, like a first-person view camera, and have all the information, telemetry showing on the computer screen. So I was in charge of that part. And that project was kind of the gateway to show me that, oh, I'm actually really interested in electronics and in figuring out how I can integrate those mechanical basic systems and see how I can digitize them. So, being involved in university really helped me. I was involved in many societies in university. I was also really interested in space. So I joined Space Concordia, where I was part of the robotics team. I joined Engineers Without Borders because I'm really passionate about using technology to help upcoming countries, or let's say less fortunate countries that might need it. And believe it or not, technology is not that expensive to introduce, because the beauty of mechatronics is that you can make it as cost effective and budget friendly as you like. So this is something that's really interesting, and it's a segue to a big passion of mine. So in 2019, only 13% of newly employed engineers were women, and only 1.38% of them were actually in a field related to robotics and mechatronics. So, why did I bring this statistic up? It's because I've always been very passionate about encouraging STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, encouraging these 4 fields amongst women. And even when I was in university, I was a very big advocate of, being part of women in engineering and networking events and societies. Even now after graduating and I'm working, I still contribute. So part of the Order of Engineers in Quebec, I go to schools and high schools and even, first and second year class universities, where I talk about what I do, and I try to encourage women and little girls to not be afraid to get your hands dirty. I know sometimes it's a little bit intimidating and it's a little bit hard to fight the stigma. Regardless of where you are in the world, whether it's the Middle East or in Europe or in Africa or in North America, it's hard to fight the stigma of, it's not for girls. That's not what a girl should be studying, or it's not what a girl should be doing. And even starting work, I was the only female in a department of 200 males. It's not easy, but it's a challenge that I was willing to take. And I think it's really important for us to work together, no matter what age you are, to really change that stigma. So next time you want to join, the math club or the science club, or you want to join the robotics club at school, and you think to yourself, it's mostly boys in there, that's okay. Let that push you to join and want to participate even more. So I just want to tell you a little bit about what it is, what it's like to be a mechatronics engineer. So, my title is Diagnostics and Validation, and what that really boils down to is that I'm a problem solver. Whenever we're working with vehicles at BRP, and I'll show you the kind of vehicles that I work with, there's usually something that breaks down. The engine breaks down, something in your vehicle breaks down, or a sensor is not working. I'm usually the person they call, because I also I'm the one who makes those things work when they're implemented in the vehicle. So naturally, I would know how to fix them. And so I'm a problem solver. So no day looks like the other. I usually spend my time troubleshooting outside, regardless of the temperature. I was actually just outside right now, minus 15, trying to make a skidoo work. So I think Hilda and Sinova would have some experience in that. I work with different tools, softwares, and people, all sorts of tools, electrical, mechanical. I do write a little bit of code, something I learned along the way during my job to sometimes make things more efficient. And, finally, the last step of my job, which involves working with a lot of people, is I work with the service team and the dealers who sell the vehicles to help them troubleshoot things and to help them explain a technical problem in a very simple way to the user or the driver. So I think the takeaway from this slide would be that, just because you're in science or engineering doesn't mean you won't be dealing with people. In fact, combining people skills and soft skills with technical skills is extremely valued these days and extremely important. So, this picture is a little picture of me working with a deconstructed engine and trying to run some preliminary tests before we integrate it into the vehicle. So here's what makes my workday awesome. I'll be showing you a few pictures of some of the vehicles I work with, and sometimes I get to, take them out for rides. So tomorrow I'll be going on a ski-doo ride with a few colleagues, and it can be really fun. So the first line of vehicles we have at BRP are the off-road vehicles, and those are the side-by-side, which is essentially like a dune buggy, and an ATV. And, growing up in Dubai, we might have not had mountains of snow like we do here, but we have mountains of sand. And so we used the ATV and the SSV to actually, we did an activity called dune bashing, which is riding around on mountains of sand and just riding the bumps, riding the hills. It's kind of like surfing, but on sand. It's really fun. And the second line of vehicles we have is the on-road. And the on-road are basically the vehicles that you see on the highways, on regular roads where cars are also driven. So those are the three-wheeled spiders. And they work like a motorbike. They just have three wheels. So they're a little bit more stable and they're definitely safer. The third kind of vehicle, which is my favorite, is the Sea-Doo. And it's my favorite because I grew up by the beach. And growing up, we actually owned the Sea-Doo. And this is essentially, it's like a jet ski. So, it's a personal watercraft. You ride it around on the waves and in the lake and in the sea, and it's really, really fun. Especially, it's a really cool activity to do with your family as well. And finally, we have the Ski-Doo, or the snowmobile that comes in the Ski-Doo and the Lynx kind, which is what Tilda and Sinova have been using during their trip. And let me tell you something about the Ski-Doo. It is an extremely powerful beast. So powerful that it'll scare away polar bears, apparently. So yes, those are the kinds of vehicles that I work with now. We do have something exciting that BRP is working on, that I'm currently working on, and those are the electric vehicles. So if you'd like to check some more out, you can check out the review on YouTube. But I just have to say, the way I see these vehicles, there's a lot of application, but they're essentially toys for adults, because at the end of the day, the mission and the values of our company really align with creating the best experience possible for our user and making sure that when you're on the vehicle riding, it's just you and the road, or you and whatever medium you're on, to make sure that you don't forget the simple pleasures in life. And I think that's extremely important. So I'd like to wrap up by just telling you a little bit about how you can give back to the community. And, like I said, you're never too young to get involved, whether it's volunteering, volunteering in your school, volunteering in your neighborhood, in your community, even in Scouts. I was a big fan of Scouts. I did Scouts for 18 years. I was a Girl Scouts leader. I think it's really important to give back to the community, regardless of what you end up studying or majoring in, because that is how our community will be improved. That is how we're capable of fighting things like global warming and climate change. It's if we all come together. So one thing I'd like to shed light on is the FIRST robotics competition. And FIRST robotics competition is a really cool and awesome way to meet people, but also to enhance your tech experience. And the FIRST robotics competition is basically an annual competition that students of all ages can participate in this competition, and you're required to build a robot. You have like almost 6 months to work with a team and a mentor, and you build a robot to complete a specific challenge. And then you get to come to Montreal and show off your robot in a big exposition and conference. It's super fun, and it's really great. And I've made some of my best friends in that competition, so it's awesome. So I've had a bit of history with this competition. In 2018, I was a mentor for the first robotics team, and I made sure that it was an all-female team. So I was lucky enough to be asked by these amazing young ladies, and as you can see in the picture, this was in Montreal. They built a fantastic robot, and let me tell you something. They came second in a whole competition of over 200 teams, and it was their first time competing. And it was such a proud moment. They're excellent. 2019, I was lucky enough to represent BRP at this competition, and I also volunteered because, like I said, it's important to give back. And in 2020, this year, I'll actually be a competition judge for the Montreal and New York competition. So apart from that, who knows where life will take me, but for now, I would like to continue to spread this message of empowering women to support each other and to go into STEM fields. So yeah, I'd be looking forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
All right, very cool. Very cool machines as well for work and for play. We have a family cottage up in Huntsville, and we have a Sea-Doo, and they are just a lot of fun.
It's amazing.
Very cool. Okay, well, let's open things up to questions. We'll take questions from our live groups. We'll take questions from the YouTube chat. Now is the time. So questions for Hilda and Sunniva about life in the Arctic, and then, of course, some engineering questions. Being a woman in engineering questions are all great for Abir as well. So I can see someone standing up nice front and center in Mrs. Ross's class. How you doing today, bud?
Good.
All right. They're in Tavistock, Ontario, here in Canada, grade 4-5s.
Yeah. Is there such thing as a four-wheel spider?
I'm assuming that question is for me. No such thing as a four-wheel spider. In fact, the four-wheel vehicles we have are the side-by-side, so the dune buggy-looking vehicles. And they can only be driven on the road in Europe, but not in North America.
All right. Good question to get it started, bud. We're going to come visit your classroom again in a moment. While we have you front and center, there's a question from a class in Guelph, Ontario, grade 5 water rockers. They are wondering, you mentioned Engineers Without Borders. Can you tell them a little bit more about that?
Yes, for sure. Engineers Without Borders for me actually started as a passion project. When I was in high school, I was really involved with Doctors Without Borders because, every year a few doctors would come and visit our school in Dubai and talk a little bit about the kind of work that they do. And then when I joined university, I heard about Engineers Without Borders. And by the way, there's an EWB chapter in every university that you go to. I started joining. I became really involved. I was the Vice President of Finances and Fundraising. The mission of the specific Concordia chapter was to send one fellow engineer or student to Ghana, Africa, for a full summer to volunteer. And based on the experience of that student, so it wasn't exclusive to engineers. It was, it could be an anthropology student or an English lit student who would be able to teach kids there. But every year we would send one student to Ghana to be able to volunteer. And, if it happened to be an engineering student, they would work with building schools and building houses and so on. And if you felt like you really enjoyed your experience, you would request to stay a little bit longer. So that's a little bit about what Engineers Without Borders does. Around the world, and especially in Canada, they're very big on fair trade. So, there's an annual conference that happens where they invite farmers from all over Africa to showcase their farmed products or any agricultural products that they have. And, EWB really encourages fair trade. So making sure that farmers are paid equally, equitably as well for their products, and making sure that they're not being used by bigger corporations. So that's just a little bit about what EWB does.
All right, very cool. Madame Patterson's crew is hanging out with us in Sudbury, Ontario. How are we doing today?
We are doing awesome. Thank you guys for having us. I have a question from Alice, and she wants to know, what kind of tools do mechanical engineers need to have?
All right, so I would start with the basics. A toolbox that you can buy anywhere, Canadian Tire. Start with a toolbox. All your screw heads would be there. A Phillips screwdriver is an engineer's secret weapon. You can do anything with a Phillips screwdriver. That's the first thing. A second thing, I would say a little hand drill is always very useful. A hammer. Those are little basic things that you can buy in any toolbox. And then to go from there, if you want to be a high-tech engineer, I would say invest in a little multimeter to read voltage and resistance and so on. So yeah, those are the basic tools that you need.
All right, great question. We'll come back to your group soon. Hilda and Sunniva, still there?
We are still here.
Excellent. I've got a question here in the chat about your four-legged polar bear friends. I have a student here who wants to know, can you tell them anything about some encounters or polar bears that you have seen so far since arriving?
We certainly can. We've had more footprints around the hut than we have had actual physical encounters. But we had a very close encounter here, was 2 weeks ago. And it was, Hilda heard a sound on the wall, like right next to where she was sitting. And whenever we hear any sound, we just, we're like firemen. We put the boots on, we put our safety gear on, our clothes, and we head out the door. And sure enough, as she tried to press the door open, there was a polar bear pressing against the door. And that startled it. And when we finally got out, we had scared it and thought tore off. But it's sometimes way too close for comfort for us. So we're always on the ready and always super, super aware. They're beautiful marine mammals, obviously, and we're here to shine a light on how intricate their ecosystem is and in peril and all of that. But there's the other side where we cannot go outside without being completely aware of also how dangerous they are, like that day. And we have been just through 3 months of complete darkness. So if you add that to not seeing anything, to having polar bears outside, I think we had this winter so far 15 polar bear encounters, or we've seen 15 polar bears. And now, after Esra came, she will alert us more. So I'm sure we're going to see more when she starts to bark. She's outside and looking for them.
Yeah, I can imagine with Etra around, a polar bear wouldn't have been right against the door. You would have noticed earlier that there was a polar bear coming.
Yeah. Absolutely. She would have said something.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Another question here from online. This class must have visited the website to see that the Citizen Science this month we've been talking about is ocean plastic. So where you are, or do you see any evidence of plastic?
We absolutely do. And because of the circumpolar currents, everything that happens in the world's water system sort of ends up in the Arctic. And where we collect the logs, I mentioned that we travel across the tundra with our snowmobile to collect the logs. It's the same place where a lot of marine debris, plastic nets and trash, and you would not believe the junk that washes up on shore. It's all frozen in the tundra right now, so we take a shovel and pick at it and bring it back. But there's quite a bit here.
Yeah. All right. Let's swing back to some live groups. I can see someone waiting in Mrs. Ross's class. Hi.
Hi.
All right, go for it.
Do you make stuff for kids?
Yeah. First of all, cool mask. Second of all, yes, we do actually. So the ATV and the Skidoo come in a different size and a different engine, and those are for kids up until the age of 13 years old. So yeah, you can check those out. It's pretty cool.
All right, very cool. Another question. This is from looks like an auto shop class, grade 10 students. They're learning about and working on small engines, and they're wondering, can you use ethanol blend gasoline for recreational equipment?
That's a great question. So the reason we don't use, I know that, in the past they've had some experiments related to that, but we don't really use ethanol blend gasoline because for power sports, you need extremely high points of ignition, and you need efficient burning. And the problem with ethanol gasoline is that it doesn't burn at those high temperatures very efficiently. So essentially, we're burning a lot of fuels for not enough power, and that's why we don't use it.
All right, great technical question from our grade 10 JMS Auto Shop. Very cool. Let's bring him in, Patterson Sudbury crew again.
Hi again. We have a question from Rhea in my grade 3 classroom. She would like to know, do mechanical engineers ever get to work in medicine or with doctors?
That is an excellent question. It's funny you say that because I do have a few friends of mine who are also female engineers, graduated mechanical engineering with me. They work in the biomedical field, and they do work with a lot of doctors. So, their job is to come up with different devices that can be plugged into your heart surgically to be able to regulate blood flow. And those kinds of machines or devices are used for patients that have a lot of heart issues. So yes, actually, you absolutely need mechanical engineers to innovate new devices that would help doctors do their jobs better.
All right, very cool. Let's see here. Another question from an online crew here. We've got some second graders from the Virtual Learning Elementary School, and Virgil would like to know. I'm going to throw this question to both Hilda and Sunniva and you as well, Abir. They want to know for you, is inventing, taking things apart, putting things together, is that your favorite thing to do? And then Hilda and Sunniva, after Abir answers, do you find you spend a lot of time working on things, taking things apart? Did you have to learn some engineering skills?
So my answer comes in two forms. The first one is, to be an engineer, you don't absolutely have to take things apart. You just need to have an affinity or a curiosity to understand how things work. So, not all the engineers I know like to do that. However, personally, yes, I absolutely love to. Ever since I was a kid, I used to, take things apart. My parents weren't too happy about it. I've ruined a remote controller too, or a calculator or two, but that's how you learn. So for me, yes, I absolutely love it, and I'm quite lucky to be in a job where I get to do that on the regular.
All right, and then Hilda and Sunniva, I imagine, being so far away, you've got lots of gear, from chainsaws to snowmobiles. Do you find yourself doing a little bit of creative engineering?
Yeah. No, a snowmobile nowadays like a computer, and I started to ride a snowmobile 25 years ago when I moved up to Svalbard, and then it was easier. But me and Sunniva have still done some small things. I mean, the hood in front of the snowmobile is no longer in one piece; it's many pieces, which is in one way a good thing. We have been digging out snow because here the snowdrift is really packing the whole room where the engine are in front of the snowmobile is just completely packed with snow. So we have to open up and rinse the snow before we are even able to drive it, because this dam that drives the whole band underneath the sled is stuck. So we have done some quite a few things also without chainsaw and stuff like that. So we have to be kind of handy women out here. We have no one to ask for help and no one to help us.
All right.
Joe, I'll just add one thing. As citizen scientists up here, we took on 8 projects for researchers studying different aspects of climate change, and you can bet that each one of those projects came with a huge manual and lots of equipment. And we have both found that patience and curiosity go a very, very long way. And Abir, I wonder if you would agree with us there that sort of like the foundation for learning skills and everything, you have to be passionately curious, and you have to be really patient too with yourself and your equipment, and just keep trying to pick away and keep learning how things function.
I completely agree with that. Curiosity is extremely important because again, that whole industry and sector is built around understanding why things work, and to understand why things work, you need to be curious. You need to always want to take the extra step. So for sure, curiosity is important. As for patience, I couldn't agree more. I had to learn how to be patient and understanding how things work during my degree, because I'm usually not a very patient person. So yes, I completely agree with you.
All right. We're going to squeeze in one, maybe 2 more questions. I see someone waiting patiently in Mrs. Ross's class.
Yeah. What was your favorite invention you've made?
I have a story for you. During my 3rd year of university, I took a class called Mechatronics and Computer Vision. Computer Vision is a code C++ based class where you basically have to code a robot to teach the robot how to see things the way a human does. And the way you do this is that you have to calibrate, how computers see colors. That was a very challenging project for me, but the robot, after 6 months of work, actually ended up being able to autonomously, so without me driving it, avoid black objects and walk or drive towards red objects, which is my favorite color. So I would say that definitely is an invention that I'm very proud of.
All right, very. One more question from YouTube. Miss McCann's class, they're grade 8s in Toronto, and they're wondering about how you felt when you started your engineering career and how you felt when you first came to Canada.
That's a great question. I had so much adrenaline in me when I first came to Canada. And by the way, I moved to Montreal without ever visiting Montreal. It was kind of like a blind decision, but I knew in my gut that it was the right decision. So always trust your gut. I was a little bit scared, but mostly excited. And, I made friends right away in university because it's a great place for you to get to know different people of different interests. So, I was really excited when I first moved here. As for when I first started engineering, I was excited, but I was a little bit scared. I had heard a lot of stories about people dropping out, or, I was scared. Like, what if I had made the wrong decision? What if I moved here all the way to study mechanical engineering and I didn't like it? Then I slowly realized that even if that's the case, that's okay. People change their minds, and you just make another decision, stick to it, and get used to that.
All right, very cool. Well, I want to give a huge shout out to our YouTube groups today. Thank you for sending in so many questions. A huge shout out to our camera classrooms. You guys had great questions today as well. Abir, it was great to have you join us and share a little bit of your story and your passion for engineering. You're definitely doing some great things and giving back to the community, and that's always great stuff. And Hilda and Sunniva in Svalbard, thank you for sharing with us, getting us up to date, and your creative uses of your snow machines.
It's our pleasure, Joe. And are we wrapping up now?
Yeah. Do you want to try to pop in for a sec?
Yeah, I'm just trying to log on to StreamYard right now, and I think it goes without saying that behind every good woman, there's usually a good man. And I want to say, like this month, being Global Women in Science Month, and the Women Blaze Trails Festival that started today. Joe, both Hilda and I have such gratitude for how you show up and how you support people and how you engage the students, with explorers like us and engineers like Abir. And it's just, you are a real connector, and the world and the educational world is a much better place because you're the host. So thank you so much. And for the students out there, stay curious, stay engaged. You are the future. You can all become engineers like Abir, or you can become explorers and climate caretakers as me and Sunava.
All right, very cool. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. We are going to see, sometimes at the end of the call, we can bring Hilda and Sunava live from the cabin. We get like a minute where we can get some video connection. So I think Hilda and Sunava are just trying to see if they can connect with us. Sunava, do you have the link, or do you need me to send it again?
No, we have it.
Okay.
So far, it's not succeeding, but we're trying again. 1 second. I might have 1 second.
Yeah. Some days we get lucky. Some days it just depends. So we do have another event coming up January 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to visit Hilda and Sunava in Bumsaboo again and get a new update. And we're going to have someone from Marlink joining us, who is one of the sponsors and providing the satellite time that allows us to connect and also keep Hilda and Sunava connected and safe. So the 25th at noon, 12 Eastern, should be a fun event to learn about global communications and how far they've come. And it should be a good one. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we see them in a moment. Otherwise, we may just have to wrap with voice today. But Abir, thank you so much. It was great to meet you today and have you share your story, especially on the International Day of Women and Girls in Science.
Yeah, it was an incredible opportunity. So thanks a lot for inviting me. And just like Hilda and Sunava said, you don't have to be an engineer or a doctor or anything to change the world. As long as you're just curious, you go out and explore and try to do your part and stay passionate.
All right. Very cool. What do you think, Hilda and Sunava? How's it looking?
Well, it doesn't seem to work today, Joe. We're trying, but we're way up to the North Pole up here, and the satellites are really fast up there. So we haven't been able so far. But it was great talking to all of you. It was. It's always so inspiring for me and Sunava, being all by ourselves out there in the wilderness, to hear both the experts like Abir today and also the questions from all the engaged kids out there. It's absolutely fantastic.
All right.
And I we want to shout out a big thank you to BRP for hosting our Education Month, which is Global Women in Science. So you've likely shared the link, Joe, but hopefully everybody can go to that page and check it out. If we can't log on, I'm really sorry. We've tried. We're not getting a connection with StreamYard.
That's okay. I'm glad we tried. Today the satellites just aren't cooperating, but we'll have a chance on the 25th, and we'll see if we get lucky.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.